Hello and thank you for joining us on Network Africa. I am Bisi Adebayo. We'll begin today's program in the Ikoyi area of Lagos, where there has been tension inside the Ikoyi Correctional Center. Reports from the center say that there were sporadic gunshots within the premises earlier today. Trouble began following fire outbreak in one of the blocks. It's not clear who lit the fire, but the inmates had attempted to cash in on the situation to escape, forcing the security personnel there to shoot into the air. The matter has, however, been brought under control after the arrival of the Assistant Controller of Prisons. This is happening about 48 hours after the prison break in Edo State. President Muhammadu Buhari has presided over the National Security Council meeting at the State House in Abuja. The meeting, which is held quarterly, comes amidst the ongoing unrest in different parts of the country in the aftermath of the NSAS protests. In attendance are the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustapha, Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, and the National Security Advisor, Retired Major General Babagana Monguno. Others are the service chiefs, led by the Chief of Defense Staff, General Gabriel Olunishaki, Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tuko Burutai, Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Ibok Ekwe Ibas, and the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar. Also present are the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, Director General of the National Department of State Services, Yusuf Bichi, Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Ahmed Rufai, and the Directorate of Military Intelligence. Amongst the cabinet members attending the meeting are the Ministers of Defense, Interior, Police Affairs, and Foreign Affairs. And more reactions continue to trail the violence which characterized the NSAS protests across the country. The Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, Mr. Anthony Ojukwu, says now is the time for the protesting youths to form their own political party and take charge of governance in the country.
We advise the protesters to please sheath their swords, let them give peace a chance. And we have advised government at all levels to take immediate action to start addressing the demands of the protesters. At our own level here, we have set up a panel of inquiry, a panel of investigation to look at complaints from SARS and any other members of the public. We are also working with Nigerian Bar Association to see how those who have genuine petitions can be assisted to package their petitions and also to represent them at the various panels of inquiry in all the states. These are immediate steps we are taking, and of course we have also formed through the stakeholders forum five subcommittees that will look at all aspects of the recommendations of the presidential panel, whether it is that of recruitment, whether it is police salaries, whether it is police infrastructure, whether it is the standard operating procedures. There are subcommittees that are looking at all this. And we say that this is a process, it's not an event. So we would plead that the protesters should please sheath their sword and give these things time to mature. There must be a turning point in the life of every nation. I think this is the moment. This moment has come, and things will never be the same again. But we need to be alive. We need to have hope and work towards these policies. If I were the young people, what I would do now is a simple thing. Yes, we have made all these points, we have raised this consciousness. We form a young people's party and register for 2023 general elections. And I can tell you that if they can organize themselves into some leadership. They keep saying they don't have leaders. I don't think that's the right way to go. You must have your leaders because government cannot be talking to all of you at the same time. But if you form a simple thing like a political party for the youth and they elect their leaders to represent them in the National Assembly, in the State House of Assembly, in the governorship positions at the different levels, you'll be shocked that a lot of them will get elected. And that is how they start being relevant in influencing legislations, policies, actions, and so on and so forth.
And days after the shooting of protesters at the Lekki Toll Plaza, calls have continued to go out as it covers the status of the wounded. Our correspondent Olu Phillips, who's been visiting the hospitals, reports that it's been difficult getting the information, and he brings us this update.
The Lekki Reddington Hospital, where some wounded protesters were brought in the last few days. We are here to make a follow-up on what exactly is happening, and we've been told at the gate that all of the patients brought in related to that incident have been discharged. We do not have any further information on this. We've been probing to find out how many of them were brought in, what exact conditions were they brought in, and when were they discharged, who signed the discharge papers, who took care of the bills, is it the Lagos state government or private individuals or the victims, the patients I should say themselves. All of those information nobody is granting to us. I approached the gate some moments ago and was told all the doctors are not available, that they are resting and cannot attend to anyone. We will keep knocking until we find an answer. We really need to find an answer. And it's important if the Reddington Lekki Hospital Management is seeing this and watching this, they owe us a duty to give us that information, because this has to do with citizens of this country.
Asaba at Coca this night. Asaba at Coca this night. After summit, Asaba at Coca Junction on fire.
This was the situation in Asaba, the Delta State capital, late yesterday, which further disrupted the peace there as more violence was recorded. As a result, the Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa this morning ordered the closure of all private and public schools in the state. In a statewide broadcast, the governor also imposed a 48-hour curfew in the state from today as structures are set ablaze by rampaging youth.
Look at this Asaba. This Asaba live.
This is Ministry of Transport Road.
Meanwhile, security operatives in Delta State have foiled a jailbreak at the Okere Correctional Center in Warri, Delta State. Reports have it that the security operatives had engaged the hoodlums who tried to attack the prison in a gunfire, foiling intended attack that would have led to the escape of inmates. Delta State Commissioner of Justice Peter Mprapo confirms to our correspondent that all inmates are still in the correctional center, contrary to reports on social media that inmates have escaped. Meanwhile, some hoodlums have set fire on the National Correctional Center in Okitipupa, Ondo State, allowing 58 inmates to escape from the center. The PRO of the Ondo State Command of the NCS, Babatunde Ogudare, disclosed this to Channels Television in a phone chat. Ogudare informs us that some officers of the center were injured during the attack. Also, the police divisional headquarters in the town has been set ablaze. The PRO of Ondo State Police Command, ESP T. Leo Koro, confirmed this to us on phone. The former chairman of Okitipupa local government area, who preferred to be anonymous, told Channels Television that the secretariat of the local government with about 5 buildings have been burnt down by the hoodlums. Let's get more on all of the developments from a security expert, Olayinde Ario, who's right here with us in the studio. Good evening, Ms. Ario. Thank you for coming on the program.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well. So we've seen what the protests have degenerated into in the last couple of days. How would you describe Nigeria's security situation at the moment?
Well, we wouldn't start from security points because something failed somewhere before we got to that point. Africa has been plagued with misgovernance at several levels over the decades. Now, the misunderstanding and misapplication of the concept of leadership and governance are the reasons why Africa is where we are today. So much that Nigeria, the leading country in Africa, the giant of Africa, now became tagged as clay-footed and an infant at 60. Now, when these things happen, instead of people getting quality life, getting quality infrastructures and everything, what they get is poverty, grinding poverty, nakedness, lack of education, and of course, everywhere you turn, what do you find? Corruption. And all of this, when you put them in the same basket, confusion will definitely occur. So NSAS was just the head of the long snake. So it was just the takeoff point. Unfortunately, government failed to view the snake. They only saw the head. Otherwise, federal government in particular were very tardy in reacting to NSAS. So when you look at all of that, there is nothing else you require to have or to create an insecure environment. Again, the primary base of government at all levels is to ensure safety and security of life and property. Without this, there can't be growth, there can't be development, there can't be progress. But progressively, that's been the trend in Nigeria. And of course, it was bound to get to this point.
And now that we're at this point, there's so much chaos everywhere in almost every part of the country. How do we get out of this problem?
Unfortunately, again, we have not started tactically, deliberately, and sustainably addressing the challenges. And I'll tell you why. If we take NSAS for an example, what brought NSAS about? A lot of children now who never witnessed military government were born into democracy or they grew into democracy. So their understanding of governance differ from what I, who witnessed barbaric military juntas. Okay? But progressively, these children were being brutalized, they were being kidnapped, they were being extorted, maimed, and in some cases, killed by policemen who ordinarily they should run to in case they're in danger. And there is nothing else, again, that can give rise to mayhem than such. It now became a regular occurrence from Lagos to Kano, from Kano to Ibadan, to everywhere. And then you read the stories every day. What happens? Each time this thing comes up, all you get from government is, we will leave no stone unturned. Unfortunately, it has continued to happen. 4 years ago, we had a terrible case, and SARS was rebranded. They added federal. And I said that it is not about nomenclature. The who does not make the monk. At that point, I changed that federal to failed. That this is failed SARS. Now we are here, 4 years after.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Olayinde Ario, for coming on the program. We don't have much time, so we just have to wrap up the conversation at this point. But we would like to thank you for making out time to be on the program today. Welcome back to the program. The Commonwealth Secretary General Patricia Scotland has condemned the violence in Nigeria, saying that those responsible for what she calls the cowardly acts must be held accountable. Lady Scotland adds that she is following with deep concern reports of attacks on demonstrators in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria. The Secretary General is asking for prompt and impartial investigations and for the findings to be made public. All right, let's get more on this story from our correspondent in London, Juliana Olayinka. Hello, Juliana. Good evening. So tell us, how are Nigerians and the British Parliament reacting to what's been happening here in the country? I know you spoke with Chime earlier on Business Incorporated about it, but what more can you tell us at this time?
Well, for the first time since the Bring Back Our Girls campaign 6 years ago, Nigeria dominated all global headlines, including here in London. And I think for the first time, you can see why the UK has in the past been described as the 37th state in Nigeria. Thousands of people descended upon the Nigeria High Commission in Britain yesterday. There were pretty peaceful scenes, I would say mostly peaceful, but the atmosphere was definitely very tense. At one point, there were several police officers protecting the building. We saw many high-profile individuals, some celebrities who reside in Nigeria but are visiting Britain, some very well-known British Nigerians. It was from there that people then headed off to Westminster, the House of Commons, in fact. They were outside Westminster. At times, there were scenes of anger. At times there was singing. At times there was a visual. And at least 6 members of Parliament came out to address the crowd. I'm sure many of our viewers would see that there has been a petition that has been set up by Nigerians here in Britain calling on the British government to implement sanctions against the Nigerian government and officials. So far, that has over 210,000 signatures. We have a process here in Britain for the government to respond to a claim. They need 10,000 signatures. For it to be a debate in the House of Commons, there needs to be 100,000 signatures. There are much more than that. So we're definitely going to expect and anticipate more responses from the British government. We actually had a response from Dominic Raab. Dominic Raab is the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom. He said in his statement, and I quote, "I am deeply concerned by the recent violence and continued clashes in Nigeria, and I'm alarmed by widespread reports of civilian deaths. We call for an end to violence. The Nigerian government must urgently investigate reports of brutality at the hands of the security forces and hold those responsible to the account." So those were the exact words from Dominic Raab there, speaking on behalf of the British government. In fact, even though there is a debate that will take place soon, the discussions, the sentiment that's being felt in Nigeria has already made its way into the House of Commons. One MP called Stephen Doubt, I believe he represents constituents in Wales. He raised the protests in the House of Commons yesterday. And so it's very much on the radar. I'm sure we're all seeing the same pictures on social media. We're all sharing the same images. I think it's also important to note that there are senior members of the British Nigerian community calling for calm. I know there are a series of protests that will be taking place on the weekend. These are people who are defending Nigeria. These are people who wish to debunk fake news. We do know that there is a lot of fake news going around on social media at the moment, but I think it's without a shadow of a doubt, Nigerians here in Britain stand together, united with their brothers and sisters in Nigeria, and particularly in Lagos. And of course, the scenes that we all witnessed on Tuesday night, which were coming from the Lekki toll gate, has a ripple effect. And I think for the first time in a long time, Nigerians in the UK desperately feel connected with their loved ones back home.
Many thanks, Juliana. Juliana Olayinka is our correspondent in London. Meanwhile, Nigerians in South Africa have staged a protest in Pretoria and Cape Town in solidarity with the #EndSARS protest in Nigeria. In Pretoria, the march was taken to the Nigerian High Commission, where they presented a list of demands, while in Cape Town, hundreds of Nigerian students marched through the South African Parliament, where an official listened to their presentation. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, reports.
The plan had been to have a peaceful march to the Nigerian High Commission here in Pretoria in solidarity with those who are agitating in Nigeria against a string of issues. But the latest incident, the shooting in the Lekki area of Lagos on Tuesday night, has slightly increased the outrage of the protesters here.
We are standing here today in solidarity with the youths in Nigeria. We are tired of their killing. We are tired of their firing. We need to get them fired. We are tired of police brutality. We are tired of bad governance, mismanagement of public funds.
It will be misplacement of our passion to make Buhari solely responsible for what is going on. As much as he's guilty, every leader in Nigeria is as guilty as the president of Nigeria. We cannot begin to count all the numbers of leaders who have failed the country. Posterity will remember them.
The march was supposed to be a peaceful one, but the sights and sounds were not always peaceful, especially when the protesters got to the Nigerian High Commission in Pretoria. The Nigerian High Commissioner to South Africa, Ambassador Kabir Bala, came out twice to receive the protesters' memorandum of demands and address them.
Please, Nigerians living in South Africa strongly condemn police, the SARS, brutality, and all forms of inhuman treatment of the Nigerian citizens.
On the second attempt, he could only receive the 23-point memorandum of demands. His audience was far from calm, and he left.
I expected them to be as peaceful as possible so that we would be able to address them. But even for them to address me, it was difficult. So I, in turn, couldn't even address them. The message will be delivered as faithfully as possible. But going through the list of demands, to me, it has gone beyond the ending of this police brutality.
Things got a bit ugly as the crowd got angry that the ambassador didn't speak to them, and the police prepped for a very chaotic scenario. The protesters soon dispersed, no less angry than they came.
You will see us.
Meanwhile, in Cape Town, a similar protest has also taken place by Nigerian students from several universities in the Western Cape province. From Pretoria, South Africa, Betty Divya, Channels Television News.
And we'll wrap up today's program in Guinea, where at least 10 people have died in post-election violence in the country. President Alpha Condé is currently leading according to results from the 14 constituencies announced by the Electoral Commission so far. There are 20 constituencies in all. However, his challenger, Siliu Delian Diallo, claimed victory and said the election was marred by anomalies. He also accused President Condé's administration of modifying results in the incumbent's favor. President Condé has called for calm as the country awaits the official election results. His controversial bid for a third term had led to protests before the elections, during which at least 50 people died, according to Amnesty International. And that's it on Network Africa today. Thank you for watching. I'm Bisi Adebayo.